The morning sun painted the palace walls with golden light. Guard Thomas Bennett stood at his post near the East Garden. He had been a royal guard for 5 years now. Today felt different. Something in the air made him nervous. Thomas watched as young Princess Emma played in the garden. She was only 8 years old with bright blonde hair and a cheerful smile. Her mother, Queen Victoria, sat on a bench nearby reading letters. The Queen looked worried. Thomas noticed her hands were shaking. Guard Bennett called Princess Emma. "Come look at the butterflies." Thomas smiled, but stayed at his position. "I can see them from here, Your Highness. They are very beautiful." The princess laughed and continued chasing butterflies through the flower beds. Her nanny, Mrs. Margaret, followed close behind. Everything seemed normal and peaceful, but Thomas felt something was wrong. He had learned to trust his instincts during his training. A good royal guard notices small details. Today, he noticed many small details that did not fit together. First, there was a new gardener working near the rose bushes. Thomas did not recognize him. Palace gardeners usually worked in teams, but this man was alone. He kept looking at Princess Emma instead of focusing on his work. Second, Queen Victoria received 3 urgent messages that morning. Each time a messenger arrived, the Queen's face became more pale and worried. She whispered to her assistant, Lady Catherine, who also looked frightened. Third, Thomas saw a black car parked outside the palace gates. It had been there for 2 hours. The driver never left the car. He just sat and watched the palace. Thomas spoke quietly into his radio. "This is Bennett at East Garden. Requesting identity check on new gardener, Section 4. The radio crackled. "Copy that, Bennett. Checking now." Princess Emma ran toward the rose bushes where the strange gardener worked. "Mr. Gardener, what flowers are these?" Thomas moved quickly. "Your Highness, perhaps we should go inside now. Your piano lesson starts soon." "But I want to see the roses," Emma protested. The gardener turned around. He was a tall man with dark hair and cold eyes. He smiled at Emma, but his smile did not look kind. It looked hungry. "The roses are very special, little princess," the gardener said. His voice was smooth like oil. "Come closer and I will show you." Thomas stepped between Emma and the gardener. The princess must go inside now. Something flashed in the gardener's eyes. Anger? Fear? Thomas could not tell, but he knew this man was dangerous. "Of course," the gardener said slowly. He returned to cutting roses, but Thomas saw his hands were not steady. Thomas gently guided Princess Emma toward the palace. Mrs. Margaret took her hand. "Come along, dear. Let us go practice your piano." "But Thomas," Emma began. "We will see the roses tomorrow," Thomas said firmly but kindly. "I promise." As they walked away, Thomas's radio crackled again. "Bennett, we have a problem. There is no new gardener scheduled for today. Repeat, no gardener scheduled." "Who is that man?" Thomas's heart beat faster. "Possible security threat in East Garden. Need backup immediately." He turned around. The gardener was gone. Thomas ran back to the rose bushes. Garden tools lay on the ground. Fresh roses were scattered everywhere. But the man had disappeared like smoke and wind. Where did he go? Thomas spoke into his radio. "Subject has vanished. Check all exits." More guards arrived within seconds. They searched every corner of the garden. They found footprints leading to a hidden gate in the palace wall. The gate was old and covered with vines. Most people did not even know it existed. The gate was unlocked. Someone had cut the old lock recently. Captain Reynolds, the head of palace security, arrived. He was a serious man with gray hair and sharp eyes. "What happened here, Bennett?" Thomas explained everything he had seen. The strange gardener, the black car, the Queen's worried face. Captain Reynolds listened carefully. "You did well to trust your instincts. This man was not a gardener. We found something in his tools." He held up a small electronic device. It looked like a tracking chip. "What is that?" Thomas asked. "We do not know yet," Captain Reynolds said. "But we found it hidden inside a basket near where the princess was playing. If she had picked it up or if it had been placed in her belongings." Thomas felt cold. Someone had tried to track Princess Emma. But why? Who would want to follow a young princess? Captain Reynolds looked at the palace. Queen Victoria stood at a window, watching them. Her face was full of fear. The Queen has been receiving threats, Captain Reynolds said quietly. Someone wants to harm the royal family. We thought we had everything under control, but this man got inside our walls. We need to find out who sent him and what they are planning. Thomas looked at the hidden gate, the scattered roses, and the tracking device. This was not a simple threat. This was something bigger and more dangerous. What do we do now? Thomas asked. Captain Reynolds' jaw tightened. Now we find out who is behind this, and we protect the princess with our lives. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Thomas realized his easy morning guard duty had become something much more serious. Somewhere out there, dangerous people were planning something terrible, and the little princess who loved butterflies and roses was in great danger. The game had begun, and Thomas was now part of it. Thomas could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about the fake gardener and the tracking device. Who was behind this plan? What do they want with Princess Emma? The next morning, Captain Reynolds called an emergency meeting. All the palace guards gathered in a secret room beneath the palace. The room had thick stone walls and no windows. Nobody could hear them here. Gentlemen, Captain Reynolds began, we have a serious situation. Someone is targeting the royal family. We must find out who and stop them before it is too late. He placed the tracking device on the table. A technology expert named Dr. Harris examined it carefully with special tools. This device is very advanced, Dr. Harris explained. It can track someone's location for up to 500 miles. It sends signals every 10 minutes. Someone spent a lot of money on this. Can you trace where the signals were going? Thomas asked. Dr. Harris nodded. Yes. The signals were being sent to a location in the old city, an abandoned warehouse near the river. Captain Reynolds looked at his guards. Bennett, you discovered this threat. You will come with me to investigate this warehouse. The rest of you will increase security around the palace. Nobody enters or leaves without triple checks. 2 hours later, Thomas and Captain Reynolds drove through the narrow streets of the old city. The buildings here were very old and many were empty. Homeless people slept in doorways. Stray cats ran through alleys. Why would someone use a warehouse here? Thomas wondered aloud. Because nobody pays attention to this area, Captain Reynolds answered. It is the perfect hiding place. They parked 2 streets away from the warehouse. Both men wore plain clothes instead of their uniforms. They did not want to be recognized. The warehouse was a large gray building with broken windows. Rust covered the metal doors. It looked like no one had used it for years. Stay alert, Captain Reynolds whispered. We do not know what we will find inside. They entered through a side door. Inside, the warehouse was dark and cold. Old boxes and broken furniture were scattered everywhere. Pigeons flew through holes in the roof. Thomas heard voices. He signaled to Captain Reynolds. They moved quietly toward the sound. Behind a stack of old crates, they found a small room. Light came from under the door. Thomas carefully looked through a crack in the door. His blood ran cold. Inside the room were 3 men looking at a large map of the palace. The map showed every room, every hallway, every exit. Red marks covered Princess Emma's bedroom, the garden, and the schoolroom. Phase 1 failed, said a tall man with a scar on his face. The tracking device was discovered. We need a new plan. What about the teacher? Asked a shorter man with glasses. We could replace her with our person. Too risky, the scar man replied. Security is too tight now. We need to think of something else. The third man was older with white hair. He spoke in a foreign accent that Thomas could not identify. The client is getting impatient. He paid us $2 million to bring him the princess. We cannot fail again. Thomas felt sick. These men wanted to kidnap Princess Emma. They were paid assassins or kidnappers for hire. What about the Queen's charity event next week? The man with glasses suggested. She always brings the princess to those events. Lots of people, lots of confusion. We could grab the girl in the crowd. The scar man smiled. Perfect. We will need at least 6 people. And we will need inside help. Inside help? The white-haired man asked. Yes. Someone who works in a palace. Someone who can tell us the Queen's exact schedule. Thomas's heart pounded. There was a traitor inside the palace. Someone they trusted was helping these criminals. Captain Reynolds touched Thomas's arm. Time to leave. They had heard enough. They moved silently back through the warehouse. but Thomas accidentally knocked over an old metal pipe. The sound echoed through the building like a gunshot. "What was that?" someone shouted from the room. "Run," Captain Reynolds commanded. Thomas and Captain Reynolds sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, they heard men shouting and running. A gunshot rang out. The bullet hit the wall near Thomas's head. They burst through the door and ran to their car. Another gunshot. The car's back window shattered into 1,000 pieces. Captain Reynolds started the engine. The car roared to life. They sped away as more bullets hit the car's body. "Are you hurt?" Captain Reynolds asked. "No," Thomas gasped. "But they saw us. They know we were there." "It does not matter," Captain Reynolds said grimly. "We learned what we needed to know. They plan to kidnap Princess Emma at the charity event, and someone in the palace is helping them." They drove back to the palace in silence. Thomas's mind raced. Who was the traitor? It could be anyone. A guard, a servant, a cook, even a member of the royal household. When they arrived, Captain Reynolds went directly to the Queen. Thomas returned to his post, but his mind was not on his duties. He watched every person who walked by. Could it be the friendly chef who always smiled? The quiet librarian who loved books? The kind doctor who treated the princess when she was sick? That evening, Princess Emma came out to the garden again. She did not know about the danger. She laughed and played without worry. "Guard Thomas," she called. "I made you a picture." She ran to him holding a drawing. It showed Thomas standing guard while butterflies flew around him. She had written at the bottom, "My favorite guard who keeps me safe." Thomas looked at her innocent, happy face. These evil men wanted to take her away from her family. They wanted to hurt this sweet, kind child for money. "Thank you, Your Highness," Thomas said softly. "I will treasure this picture always." "Will you really keep me safe?" Emma asked. Thomas knelt down to her level. "Always. I promise." As the sun set behind the palace, Thomas made a silent vow. He would find the traitor. He would stop these criminals. And he would protect Princess Emma with his last breath. The battle was coming, and Thomas was ready. Thomas spent the next 3 days watching everyone in the palace very carefully. He wrote notes about everything he saw. Who talked to whom? Who left the palace? Who received phone calls? Captain Reynolds created a secret team of 5 trusted guards. They met every night after midnight in the hidden room beneath the palace. Each guard reported what they had observed during the day. "The head chef left the palace twice yesterday," reported Guard Anderson. "Both times for exactly 30 minutes. The Queen's secretary received 4 calls from unknown numbers," said Guard Williams. "She looked nervous each time." Thomas shared his observations. "Lady Catherine, the Queen's assistant, has been very quiet lately. She used to be cheerful, but now she seems scared. She jumps when people speak to her." Captain Reynolds wrote everything down on a large board. He drew lines connecting different pieces of information. He was trying to find a pattern. "We have 3 suspects," Captain Reynolds said. "The chef, the secretary, and Lady Catherine. We need to watch them closely. The charity event is in 4 days." The next morning, Thomas was assigned to guard the palace kitchen. He needed to watch the head chef, a large man named Robert who had worked at the palace for 15 years. Chef Robert was preparing breakfast for the royal family. He moved around the kitchen with expert skill, chopping vegetables and stirring pots. Everything seemed normal. Then Thomas noticed something strange. Chef Robert's phone buzzed. He quickly looked at the message, and his face turned pale. He glanced around nervously, then stepped into the storage room. Thomas moved closer. Through the slightly open door, he heard Chef Robert whispering. "I told you, I cannot do this anymore," the chef said. "It is too dangerous. I have a family." Silence. He was listening to someone on the phone. "I know what you will do if I stop," the chef continued. His voice shook with fear. "But I cannot help you hurt a child. I just cannot." More silence. "Fine. I will give you the schedule one last time. But after this, I am done. You must leave my family alone." Thomas's heart raced. He had found the traitor. It was Chef Robert. But something did not feel right. The chef sounded scared, not evil. He sounded like a victim, not a criminal. Thomas quickly left the kitchen and found Captain Reynolds. "Sir, I think Chef Robert is the traitor. But I believe someone is forcing him to help. He said they threatened his family." Captain Reynolds's eyes narrowed. This changes everything. If they are blackmailing him, we can use this. Where's he now? Still in the kitchen, sir. Good. Bring him to me. But be gentle. If he is being forced, he is a victim too. Thomas returned to the kitchen with 2 other guards. Chef Robert was back at his station, but his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his knife. Chef Robert, Thomas said quietly, please come with us. You are not in trouble, but we need to talk. The chef's face crumbled. Tears filled his eyes. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so very sorry. They have my daughter. In the underground room, Chef Robert told them everything. 3 weeks ago, men had kidnapped his 18-year-old daughter, Sarah. They called him with a terrible message. Give them information about the royal family's schedule, or they would kill Sarah. I do not want to help them, the chef sobbed. But she is my only child. Her mother died when she was young. Sarah is all I have in this world. What would you do if they had your child? Captain Reynolds's face softened. Where are they keeping your daughter? I do not know. They never told me. They just send me pictures to prove she is alive. They call me from different numbers every time. When do they call you next? Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. They want the final schedule for the charity event. Captain Reynolds thought for a moment. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had just found his prey. Chef Robert, you will give them the schedule, but it will not be the real schedule. We will create a fake plan. We will lead them into a trap. Hope filled the chef's eyes. You will save my daughter. We will save your daughter and stop these criminals, Captain Reynolds promised. But you must do exactly as we say. The next 24 hours were busy. Captain Reynolds worked with the police and military. They created a careful plan. They would catch the criminals and rescue Sarah. Thomas worked with the technology team. They put a special tracking program on Chef Robert's phone. When the criminals called, the team could find their location within minutes. The Queen was told everything. She was angry at first that someone in her palace had betrayed her trust. But when she learned about Sarah, her anger turned to sadness. That poor girl, Queen Victoria said. And poor Robert. He was put in an impossible situation. We must save her. At exactly 9 o'clock the next morning, Chef Robert's phone rang. Thomas and Captain Reynolds stood beside him in the recording room. Dozens of computers tracked the call. Hello. Chef Robert answered. His voice was steady, though his hands shook. Do you have the information? Asked a cold voice. Yes. The charity event will be at Central Park. The Queen and Princess will arrive at 2 o'clock. They will enter through the East Gate. Security will be focused on the main entrance, so the East Gate will have fewer guards. This was all false information. The real event would be at a different location with much more security. Good, the voice said. You have done well. After tomorrow, you will see your daughter again. Is she safe? Please let me speak to her. She is fine. You will have her back soon. The call ended. Dr. Harris looked up from his computer with a huge smile. We got them. The call came from an old factory on the north side of the city. I have the exact address. Captain Reynolds grabbed his radio. All teams, we have a location. Move in now. Remember, there is a hostage. We need her alive and safe. Police cars and military vehicles rushed toward the factory. Thomas, Captain Reynolds, and 20 guards followed close behind. The rescue mission had begun. Sarah's life depended on what happened next. And so did Princess Emma's safety. Thomas checked his weapon and said a quiet prayer. Today they would end this nightmare. Today they would save both Sarah and the princess. The factory appeared ahead, dark and silent, waiting. The factory stood like a dark giant against the gray sky. Broken windows stared down at them like empty eyes. The building was surrounded by tall metal fences covered in rust. Captain Reynolds spoke quietly into his radio. Team Alpha, take the north entrance. Team Bravo, cover the south side. Team Charlie, you are with me at the main door. Remember, we have a hostage inside. No one shoots unless I give the order. Thomas was part of Team Charlie. His heart pounded as they approached the main entrance. 20 years of training had prepared him for this moment, but he still felt nervous. A young girl's life was in their hands. The door was locked with chains. A guard with heavy tools cut through the metal. The chains fell to the ground with a loud crash. Go, 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 Captain Reynolds commanded. They rushed inside. The factory was enormous and filled with old machinery. Dust covered everything. Their footsteps echoed in the empty space. Spread out, Captain Reynolds whispered, "Search every room. Stay in contact." Thomas moved forward with two other guards. They checked the first room. Empty. The second room. Empty. The third room had old boxes and broken equipment, but no people. Then Thomas heard something. A small sound, like someone crying. "Captain, I hear something." "Northwest corner, second floor." "Copy that." Moving to your position, Thomas climbed the metal stairs carefully. Each step creaked under his weight. The crying sound grew louder. It was definitely a young woman. At the top of the stairs was a long hallway with several doors. The crying came from the last door on the right. Thomas reached the door. It was locked from the outside with a thick padlock. He gestured to the other guards. They positioned themselves on either side of the door. "Sarah," Thomas called softly. "Sarah, can you hear me? We're here to help you. Your father sent us." The crying stopped. "Papa? Is Papa okay?" A young woman's voice, weak and scared. "Your father is safe. We're palace guards. We're going to get you out. Stand back from the door." One guard shot the lock. The door swung open. Inside was a small, dirty room with no windows. A young woman sat on the floor, tied to a metal pipe. She had long brown hair and her father's kind eyes. Her face was bruised, and she looked very thin. "Sarah, we have you now. You are safe." Thomas knelt beside her and cut the ropes with his knife. Sarah collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Thank you. I thought I would die here." "Can you walk?" Thomas asked gently. "I think so. My legs are weak, but I can try." Thomas helped her stand. "We need to get you out of here quickly." "Can you?" Suddenly, gunshots exploded through the factory. Bullets hit the walls around them. Men were shouting below. "They are here. The guard found us. Everyone grab your weapons. We have been discovered." Captain Reynolds' voice crackled over the radio. "All teams engage. Protect the hostage." More gunshots. The sound was deafening. Thomas pulled Sarah behind a large metal cabinet. "Stay down. Do not move." He looked over the cabinet. Below, he could see the criminals fighting with the palace guards and police. There were at least 10 criminals, all armed with guns. The Scar Man from the warehouse was there. He was shooting at Captain Reynolds' team. "Kill them all. Do not let them escape." Thomas needed to get Sarah out of the building, but the main stairs were in the middle of the battle. He looked around desperately. There, a fire escape on the outside of the building. If they could reach the window at the end of the hallway, they could climb down to safety. "Sarah, listen to me. We need to reach that window. Stay low and follow me exactly." "Can you do that?" Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. They crawled along the hallway floor. Bullets flew overhead. Glass shattered. Men screamed. The battle raged below them. They reached the window. Thomas smashed the remaining glass with his gun. "Climb out. I will be right behind you." Sarah crawled through the window onto the fire escape. Her hands shook as she gripped the rusty metal ladder. Below them, 2 criminals ran out of the building. They saw Sarah on the fire escape. "There! The girl is escaping," one shouted. They raised their guns. Thomas did not think. He jumped through the window and covered Sarah with his body. Bullets hit the metal around them, sparks flying everywhere. Thomas fired back. One criminal fell. The other dove behind a car. "Climb down. Now!" Thomas shouted to Sarah. They scrambled down the fire escape. Thomas kept shooting to keep the criminals back. His gun clicked empty. No more bullets. The criminal behind the car stood up, aiming at Sarah. Thomas threw himself in front of her. He felt a sharp, burning pain in his shoulder. He had been shot, but he did not fall. He grabbed Sarah's hand and ran. They sprinted across the open ground toward the police cars. "Officer down! Officer down!" someone shouted into a radio. Police officers rushed forward and pulled him to safety. A medic immediately began treating Thomas's wound. "The girl, is she okay?" Thomas gasped through the pain. "I'm fine," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life. You took a bullet for me." Inside the factory, the battle continued. But Captain Reynolds and his teams were winning. One by one, the criminals were captured or surrendered. Finally, the shooting stopped. Captain Reynolds emerged from the factory, pushing the scarred man in handcuffs. The man's face was covered in blood and anger. "We got them all," Captain Reynolds announced. "Every single one. It is over." Police cars arrived with sirens wailing. Ambulances took the wounded guards to the hospital. The criminals were loaded into prison vans. Chef Robert arrived in a police car. When he saw Sarah, he broke down crying. Father and daughter ran to each other and held on tight. "Papa, Papa," Sarah sobbed. "My girl, my precious girl. I thought I had lost you forever," the chef cried. Thomas watched from the ambulance where medics bandaged his shoulder. The pain was terrible, but seeing Sarah reunited with her father made it worth it. Captain Reynolds walked over. "You did good work today, Bennett. Very good work. You saved that girl's life." "Is it really over, sir?" Thomas asked. Captain Reynolds' face grew serious. "We caught the hired criminals, but we still did not know who paid them. Someone wanted Princess Emma badly enough to spend $2 million. That person is still out there." Thomas felt a chill despite his pain. "The charity event is tomorrow. Will the princess be safe?" "We will make sure of it," Captain Reynolds said. "But we must stay alert. The real enemy has not been caught yet." As the sun began to set, Thomas realized their victory was not complete. They had won this battle, but the war was not over. Somewhere, a mysterious enemy was planning their next move. And Princess Emma was still in danger. Thomas spent 2 days in the hospital. His shoulder hurt badly, but the doctors said he would recover fully. Many people visited him. Captain Reynolds brought him medals. Chef Robert brought him special food. Even Queen Victoria came to thank him personally. But the visit that meant the most was from Princess Emma. She walked into his hospital room holding flowers and another drawing. Her mother, Queen Victoria, stood behind her. "Guard Thomas," Emma said with her bright smile. "I heard you were hurt saving people. You are a hero." Thomas tried to sit up straighter, but pain shot through his shoulder. "I was just doing my job, Your Highness." "Mama says you're the bravest guard in the whole kingdom," Emma continued. She handed him the flowers and the drawing. This picture showed Thomas wearing a knight's armor, standing in front of castle. "Thank you, Princess. This is beautiful." Queen Victoria stepped forward. Her eyes were serious. "Guard Bennett, you risked your life to save an innocent girl. You discovered the plot against my family. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Your Majesty, I just—" "Please," the Queen interrupted gently. "Let me finish. Tomorrow is the charity event. I know the criminals have been caught, but Captain Reynolds says the person who paid them is still unknown. I want you to know that we have canceled the event. My daughter's safety is more important than any charity." Thomas felt relieved. "That is wise, Your Majesty." However, the Queen continued, "We are holding a small, private ceremony at the palace instead. Only trusted people will attend. And I want you there, even if you are injured. You have earned the right to be honored." The next day, Thomas left the hospital with his arm in a sling. He wore his formal guard uniform with all his medals. Captain Reynolds picked him up personally. "How are you feeling?" the captain asked. "Sore, but ready," Thomas replied. "Have you learned anything new about who hired those criminals?" Captain Reynolds frowned. "Nothing concrete, but I have suspicions. Today, we will have all the suspects in one room. Sometimes the guilty person reveals themselves when they think they are safe." They arrived at the palace. The ceremony was being held in the Grand Hall. Only 50 people were invited. Palace staff, senior guards, and a few close friends of the royal family. Thomas scanned the crowd. Everyone seemed happy and relaxed. Music played softly. Servants offered tea and small cakes. Princess Emma ran to him. "Thomas, you came. Does your shoulder still hurt?" "Only a little, Your Highness." "Good, because I want you to stand next to me during the ceremony. Mama says you are my guardian angel." The ceremony began. Queen Victoria stood at the front of the hall and spoke about bravery and loyalty. She called Thomas forward and presented him with the Royal Medal of Valor. Everyone applauded. Thomas felt proud, but also uncomfortable with so much attention. He just wanted to do his job and protect people. After the ceremony, people gathered in small groups to talk and celebrate. Thomas stood near Princess Emma, watching everyone carefully. His training never stopped, even at a party. Then he noticed something strange. Lady Catherine, the Queen's assistant, was standing in the corner talking on her phone. Her face looked angry. She kept glancing at Princess Emma. Thomas moved closer, pretending to adjust his sling. He could hear parts of the conversation. "I told you the plan failed," Lady Catherine hissed into the phone. "They caught everyone. No, I do not have another chance. I want my money. You promised me $3 million. Thomas's blood turned to ice. Lady Catherine was the one who hired the criminals. She was the mastermind behind everything. He quickly signaled to Captain Reynolds across the room. The captain saw Thomas's urgent expression and immediately started walking over. Lady Catherine noticed them both staring at her. Her face went pale. She ended the call and started walking quickly toward the exit. "Stop her!" Thomas shouted. "She is the one. Lady Catherine is behind everything." Lady Catherine broke into a run. She pushed past surprised guests, knocking over a table of drinks. Glass shattered on the marble floor. Captain Reynolds and 3 other guards chased after her. Thomas wanted to help, but his injured shoulder slowed him down. Lady Catherine reached the main door and flung it open. But 10 guards stood outside, blocking her escape. She was trapped. She spun around, her face twisted with rage and desperation. "You do not understand. I deserve that money. I have worked for this family for 20 years. I am just a servant to them. I wanted my share. By kidnapping a child." Queen Victoria's voice was cold as ice. She stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at Lady Catherine with disgust. "By trying to hurt my daughter? She has everything." Lady Catherine screamed. "She was born into wealth and luxury, while people like me work ourselves to death for scraps. It is not fair. So you try to sell my daughter to criminals?" The Queen's voice shook with anger. "Who was going to buy her? Who did you make this evil deal with?" Lady Catherine laughed bitterly. "A rich businessman from another country. He wanted a royal child to force you to change trade agreements. He was willing to pay millions. I would finally have been rich." Guards grabbed Lady Catherine's arms. She struggled, but it was useless. "You betrayed us," Queen Victoria said quietly. "We trusted you. We welcomed you into our home, and you tried to destroy my family for money. I would do it again." Lady Catherine spat. "I would do anything to escape this life of servitude." Captain Reynolds pulled her toward the door. "Take her away. She will spend the rest of her life in prison." As the guards dragged Lady Catherine out, she screamed and cursed. But her voice faded as the heavy doors closed behind her. The Grand Hall was silent. Everyone was shocked. A trusted member of the household had been a traitor all along. Princess Emma tugged on Thomas's good arm. "Is she gone? Is the bad lady gone forever?" Thomas knelt down to her level. "Yes, Your Highness. She is gone, and she can never hurt you. You are safe now. Because of you," Emma said simply. She hugged him carefully, avoiding his injured shoulder. Queen Victoria approached them, tears in her eyes. "Guard Bennett, you saved my daughter twice. Once from the criminals at the factory, and again today by discovering the true villain. How can I ever thank you? Your Majesty, seeing the princess safe and happy is all the thanks I need." That evening, as the sun set over the palace, Thomas stood at his post in the East Garden. His shoulders still hurt, but his heart felt light. The danger was over. The criminals were caught. The traitor was imprisoned. Princess Emma played in the garden, chasing butterflies like she always did. But now she could play without fear. Now she was truly safe. Chef Robert returned to his kitchen with his daughter Sarah by his side. She had decided to become a chef too, learning for her father. Captain Reynolds assigned extra guards to protect the royal family. They would never be caught unprepared again. And Thomas? Thomas continued his duty as a royal guard. He did not seek glory or fame. He just wanted to protect innocent people. As he watched the sunset paint the sky with beautiful colors, Princess Emma ran over to him one more time. "Guard Thomas." "Yes, Your Highness." "Promise you will always be here to protect me." Thomas smiled. "Always, Princess Emma. Always." The butterflies danced in the evening light. The palace stood strong and safe. And inside its walls, a little princess could finally sleep peacefully, knowing that brave guards like Thomas watched over her. The story was over. The danger had passed, and good had triumphed over evil. The end.